Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
And congratulations on another book.
Another book, that's right. Thank you for remembering.
What's fascinating is you wrote a book, before this there was a smash hit, it was about presidents and their pets, right?
That's right.
And then...
smash hit part, but okay. It was, yes, about presidential pets.
It did very well for a book about presidents and their pets. It was the best performing presidents and their pets book.
Exactly. Thank you.
That's a hit in my book.
I love this pen.
Right. And you didn't do that again. Is it because Trump doesn't have a pet?
That is true that he's the first president to not have a pet in the White House. Chester Alan Arthur burned all of his papers, but so we don't know for sure that he had pets, but my understanding is he had a goldfish. I'm not making this up. But Donald Trump does not have a pet.
Right.
Millard Fillmore also didn't have a pet, but he was the vice president of the ASPCA for the Buffalo chapter when he left the White House, so that counts.
What I always find really
I can't believe you didn't follow up on that.
freakish about you is that you just have all of this information in your head. You're like a presidential buff. Like you just love information about presidents. Any trivia about presidents?
Yeah, I love presidential factoids, and I grew up outside of Washington D.C. And seriously, when you grow up in the D.C. area, sort of the president is kind of the above the title film star. I imagine it's the equivalent of growing up in L.A. and looking through the Paramount gates in a way.
Right.
But so I've always been kind of fascinated in the presidency.
This book is interesting, though, because you wrote about people in this book. It's like Mobituaries, which is a play on your name, but obituaries as well. Great lives worth reliving. You went with all of the people who we almost wouldn't know about, you know? So it's not about Jimmy Carter, it's about someone in Jimmy Carter's family, you know? It's not about Rosa Parks, it's about another woman of color, a black woman who decided to ride on a tram when she wasn't allowed to and it was all white. It's like, why did you choose these characters? How did you find them?
You know, this kind of marginalized history, these people that I don't think got the send-off they deserved. And I know it sounds silly when we're talking about serious subjects like Elizabeth Jennings, the Rosa Parks of New York, but it feels good. It's fun to know this stuff. Right. I like that, and I thought people, especially these kind of pockets of progress that have been forgotten, I think are important to know about. That history doesn't move in a straight line. So somebody like Elizabeth Jennings, almost exactly 100 years before Rosa Parks,
right.
She's booted off of a streetcar in New York City, and she hires a future president. In fact, Chester Alan Arthur. I can't believe this is the first interview ever where Chester Alan Arthur has been name-checked twice. But she hires a young Chester Alan Arthur to defend her in civil court, and she wins. And this leads to the integration of New York City's transportation authority shortly after the Civil War. And I thought, that's kind of nuts that people don't know this.
Every single story in this book feels like stories you would want to just have in your brain to be the most interesting person in a room.
Yes.
Right? Because it's like one of the stories that blew my mind here is when you were, like, I didn't know the history of the term Siamese twins, right? Conjoined twins, but then originally people like Siamese twins, and I didn't know that it came from two twins from a region that was once known as Siam, which was Thailand. And you tell this story, which is fascinating because they're conjoined twins, and then they come to America, they're brought to America, they're a sideshow, then they go on to become slave owners?
Right.
So you're like cheering for them the whole time in the story, and then at some point you're like, whoa.
You're like, oh, I almost completely loved you,
right.
And you just screwed it up at the last second.
You had to go and become slave owners.
Right. But that made it to me, it's certainly a more complicated story, a richer story, and a story more worth telling. I mean, they're immigrants. Their names are Chang and Eng Bunker. They're two of the first celebrities in America. They're once wildly famous. They're pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. They win their freedom, and then they own slaves. And it's sort of like the story of America, the good and the not good,
right.
all in one. I mean, they pack it all into that story. And I was drawn to them because I remembered as a kid growing up, people my age will remember in the Guinness Book of World Records, there was this picture of them. It's like the picture of the conjoined twins. And there was this whole story behind that.
What is your favorite story, like, that everyone you think should know about that they don't know about?
Oh boy, I have so many that I love. I love the story of Billy Carter because Billy Carter, the younger brother of Jimmy Carter, is remembered by most people, if at all, as kind of a buffoon, kind of a joke, a caricature of a redneck. And he, in fact, I went and I talked to President Jimmy Carter about him, to his widow and his 6 kids, and they describe a man who was hardworking, who was very funny, and we know this from interviews, profiles that were done of him, and a man who was struggling with alcoholism, and in the last proud chapter of his life ministered to people that could relate to him about this.
Right.
And here he is in a small, tiny town in southwest Georgia, living his life. His brother decides to run for president. The media descends. I mean, how would anyone handle that? The family business was then put into a blind trust.
Right.
Quaint, I know. and those were the days. And so he has no choice but to make his living at being Billy Carter.
Right.
Kind of being a caricature of himself, but a complicated and decent man, like when you really learn about him. And so I wanted to be generous and I wanted to be compassionate. I think obituaries are the one place in journalism where the rule of thumb is, and I think should be, giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, that's interesting. Giving people the benefit of the doubt.
When you die, I mean, come on.
You're gone.
Right.
You're gone.
I mean, unless you're a war criminal, that's different.
Oh, then no doubt.
Right. Yeah, you know.
Some doubt or no doubt at all? No benefit of doubt.
No benefit of the doubt.
None at all.
No nice stories about how they like puppies and all that. No.
Got it. What if it was like puppy-loving war criminal dead? Or would you not even include the puppy-loving part?
2-part series.
War criminal dead,
Right.
also loved puppies.
Yeah, that's an inset.
We put that deep inside the story.
Right.
If you get that far, also
if you
love
get
puppies.
That, but we want to make sure you get to the war criminal part
Got
first.
it. Puppies could not be reached for comment.
Right.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Trevor. Really
a
great.
fascinating book. Mobituaries is available now. A really fun read. Mo Rocca, everybody.